Welcome, CSS aspirants. Okay, today we're cutting through all the noise to map out the exact internal and external constraints that actually drive organizational decision-making. Look, no organization operates in a vacuum, right? To be an effective future administrator, you've got to understand the forces at play here. Let's break down these dense academic concepts practically in today's explainer.
Here is our quick roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The external task environment, 2. Broad general environmental forces, 3. Navigating environmental uncertainty, 4. Internal organizational culture, and finally, 5. Managing stakeholders and culture. So we're basically working outside in today.
All right, Section 1, the external task environment. Let's start with the specific, day-to-day elements managers are constantly interacting with. So let's define this task environment, which is sometimes called the specific environment. Now, we aren't talking about distant, vague, global trends here. These are the external forces that have a direct, immediate, and frequent impact on an organization's operations. If a manager ignores this layer, well, the organization is going to feel the pain instantly. Just think of a major smartphone company. To even survive, managers there have to instantly adapt to their customers' purchasing power and changing needs. Because, let's be real, expectations shift at lightning speed these days. They've also got to secure reliable suppliers to avoid production delays, constantly outsmart competitors who are just dying to steal their market share, and navigate pressure groups, like maybe environmental activists, to maintain public trust. It is literally a daily high-stakes balancing act.
Moving right along to Section 2, Broad General Environment Forces. This is where we zoom out from the daily grind and look at the larger macroeconomic trends.
The general environment casts a massive shadow over everything. While a manager obviously can't just wave a magic wand and fix the global economy, understanding how these broad societal forces indirectly influence the organization over the long haul is absolutely crucial for high-level strategy.
Think about how these forces actually play out in reality. Take an economic factor, say a sudden massive spike in inflation. Boom, production costs just skyrocketed. Or a technological shift, like the explosion of AI and automation, which is entirely transforming how goods are even produced right now. Or maybe consider sociocultural shifts, like a sudden societal push for health consciousness that forces major food companies to completely overhaul their product lines. You can't control the tides, but you definitely have to build a ship that can sail on them.
Which brings us to Section 3, Navigating Environmental Uncertainty. The big question here is, how do managers actually survive all this complex external weather?
Well, uncertainty, at its core, is just a lack of data. When you don't have enough information about what the economy or your competitors are going to do next, predicting future outcomes becomes incredibly difficult. And this environmental uncertainty is basically measured along two specific dimensions. Let's look at the first one. The first dimension is the degree of change. Basically, are things stable or dynamic? In a stable environment, changes happen pretty slowly, which gives you plenty of time to react. But in a dynamic environment, changes occur rapidly and unpredictably. A dynamic setup demands far faster managerial reflexes. If you're too slow, you're obsolete. It's really that simple. The second dimension is the degree of complexity. Ask yourself, are you dealing with a simple environment with just a few clear elements, or a highly complex one? Naturally, organizations that operate globally face a wildly complex environment. I mean, they're juggling multiple international regulations, exchange rate fluctuations, and totally different cultural norms all at the exact same time. When you combine a highly dynamic environment with a highly complex one, you get maximum uncertainty.
So what do you actually do when uncertainty is absolutely peaking? Well, successful managers don't just panic. They build systems. They rigorously and continuously scan the environment to gather accurate data. They don't lock themselves into rigid, inflexible 10-year plans. Instead, they develop flexible strategies and solid contingency plans. They encourage innovation so they can pivot quickly, and above all, they make timely decisions before the window of opportunity snaps shut.
Okay, so we've mapped out all these uncontrollable external storms, from inflation to aggressive competitors to rapid tech shifts, but here is the real puzzle for us. How do we build an internal shelter robust enough to actually survive them?
That brings us to Section 4, Internal Organizational Culture. To answer that question, we have to step away from the outside world and look inward.
The answer lies in the most powerful managerial constraint of all, internal culture. Now, a strong culture is invisible, but it is incredibly powerful. It answers all those unwritten questions, like what behaviors are actually rewarded around here, or how do we handle conflict?
A robust culture creates unity. And more importantly for you as future managers, it acts as an informal control mechanism. When a culture is strong, employees already know exactly what's expected of them, and that guides their behavior without you needing to resort to constant, suffocating micromanagement.
But culture doesn't just magically appear out of thin air, right? It follows a very clear sequential flow. It almost always starts with the founders and their original vision. Then that gets locked in through hiring practices, basically recruiting people who naturally match those core values. Next, leadership steps up to act as role models. Then comes socialization, where new employees are officially trained in the way things are done here. And finally, the whole thing is cemented on a daily basis through stories, symbols, and company rituals.
Finally, we reach Section 5, Managing Stakeholders and Culture. This is really the synthesis of our whole explainer today.
How does a highly effective manager bridge that robust internal culture we just talked about with the completely chaotic external environment? Well, they do it by actively managing a massive, interconnected web of stakeholders. Successful managers do not just wait around to react. They proactively build relationships with everyone on this list, from government agencies and local communities right down to suppliers and employees. Effective stakeholder management builds essential trust. It reduces costly conflicts, it improves cooperation, and ultimately it drives long-term organizational performance. You are basically perfectly aligning the inside of the organization with the outside.
Furthermore, top-tier managers intentionally shape their internal culture to directly answer whatever the external environment is demanding. So if you're in the tech sector, facing rapid, dynamic changes, you absolutely must cultivate an innovative culture that rewards experimentation and calculated risk-taking. But if you're in banking or retail, a customer-responsive culture focused on service quality is going to be your shield. Or to meet modern ethical expectations, you might need to foster a sustainable culture. The culture you choose isn't just an accident. It is your deliberate, strategic response to the outside world.
Now, you aren't just learning these constraints in theory. As future CSS officers, you are going to be living them. When you are the one sitting in the administrator's chair, facing unprecedented economic shifts, complex regulations, and rapid global uncertainty, what specific culture will you build to ensure your department doesn't just survive, but truly thrives? Keep that question front of mind as you step into your future roles. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep